Hunley has the whole monopoly. I don't know who that son of a bitch thinks he is.
Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs.
No. Piers Morgan is doing the hide my boner lean. That's what he's doing. Look at him.
I think this is actually the first time that a billionaire cut safety standards, and it was the billionaire themselves that died.
And that's what made Polieres. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name.
Polieres.
I'm board certified criminal trial law in Florida. I'm your man. Of course, you have to compensate me.
Discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
I did this way before him. I had the big brain panel before Eric Hunley even existed.
I love that.
But I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yes, you are.
All right. Things were hot before we even got started on the show, and I guess we're going to have to open with this subject, and the person that'll have to open with it is the guy who I think out of the group is most responsible for the individual being there. So Nate is going to tell us about his president that he voted for and what the DOJ has to say about them.
It's all your fault.
It's all my fault. Well, hey, listen.
Thanks, Nate.
Let's just be clear. The DOJ has said that Biden has done nothing wrong and that we should all vote for Biden going forward in 4 years. That's what they said, right, Eric? Or was it something more than that? All right, let's lay it down. So we all know that Trump had the issue with the classified documents. Now, I agreed, like I said on this panel many times, I think that's probably the best case out of all the other nonsense cases that he has. I think that's probably the best case because it's kind of clear. He had the documents. They asked him back for it. There was a subpoena. He said no, blah, blah, blah. All these people lied. I think that's the clearest case. But now, Biden. Come to find out, he has the same exact issue. They go and they find classified documents all in his garage, playing around, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know. So the DOJ was in a little bit of a bind. They had President Trump, who they're prosecuting for having these classified documents. And now you got President Biden, who's kind of got the same issue. So they had to kind of let us know why they were prosecuting Trump and why they weren't prosecuting Biden. So it all comes down to this, to the mental state. They said that essentially Joe Biden's mental state is that of an nincompoop. That he couldn't really believe, that he didn't really know what was going on. Essentially, his memory was so bad, and that they believed that they couldn't convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that he was able to remember, what was going, that he knew what was going on because he's essentially an old man. So now, but they also said a couple of other things. So I got to be clear. They also said that Biden did comply with the subpoena when Trump didn't. Biden also did turn over the documents and consented to searches when Trump did. And so, that without a warrant. So they did mention there were some fundamental differences. But the reason why
didn't Biden defend himself though later?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The main reason why they said that even though technically they could prosecute Biden, they were not prosecuting him based on they didn't feel that they could prove the requisite mental state because Biden essentially was not all there mentally. But that then brings up the fact, why is he running? Why does he have to, if he is too mentally not there to be prosecuted by the Department of Justice, then how the hell does he have the nuclear code?
I thought he defended himself. Didn't Biden comment on the issue?
Oh, yeah, I'll let you guys talk about the Biden comment when he's talking about how good his memory is and then forgot the guy.
I think you saw that, right?
Oh, definitely I saw that. I thought that was a really good quip. He has such a good memory that he shouldn't be able to speak. Peter Doozy, the reporter there. It was a great job. Yeah.
So what happened? What did he say? What went down?
Well, we should throw the clip on. That's probably the best thing.
I don't have a clip on hand, do you?
You don't? Go ahead. You guys talk. I'll grab it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with what Nate's talking about. It's lunacy. There's so much lunacy going on in the world today, and so yeah, I just kind of had a polite chuckle when I watched the interview with President Biden, and I think you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when we look at the clip.
Now, hold on. You were a federal prosecutor. That's part of why I'm picking on you right now. So, yeah. What do you think about how they're handling this particular situation?
Well, I think that actually, it's probably expected. You know, when I got into law, like a lot of us out here, I was very idealistic. I really thought that justice should reign, and I thought that I had the ability to do that. When I actually got into the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of California, which is in Sacramento, I was surprised being a 22 or whatever year old guy. It really is kind of a hierarchy there. And really the prosecutors there are designed to dispose of cases as quickly as possible. So most of my cases resolved, probably 90% of them resolved without trial or without a court trial. And also, we really were provided with the conclusion that the U.S. attorney wanted. So it was kind of like, here's the case. This is what we want you to do, and do it. So when it comes to, control over the prosecution, especially when the president, it's like asking you to prosecute the U.S. attorney that you work for. So it's not unexpected that this would be the conclusion, protecting the current commander-in-chief.
Okay, I think I found it here.
Oh, I have the clip. I was just waiting for. Well, go ahead, you got it. Go play it.
Is that the one?
I can
Yeah, no, I have it, but I can. But if you found it, go ahead.
Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side.
And you get a burrito, and you get a burrito, and you get a burrito.
Yeah, so that's the president of Mexico, not the president of. But I think, how can they ask people to vote for someone who is mentally incompetent?
Wait, didn't they elect Fetterman?
Oh yeah, they did elect Fetterman.
I'm just saying. You asked me how. Oh, that's my answer.
how can they do it? Because he's not the orange man, therefore he's not bad. Yeah. We're gonna own Trump by electing somebody who's mentally incompetent. That's
81 million votes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, 74 million votes for the.
You want to win so bad. You want to win so bad.
71 and 81, 74 and 81 million votes. It's crazy.
Yeah. Is this a different clip, Ian, or same one?
Yeah, this is the one with Peter Doozy, and actually the memory
tore him apart.
Something special. Good. Yeah, let's go to that one.
Yeah.
Counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's
memory has gotten worse.
What the hell does that mean? Your memory
cool. Now you get charged with an 18 USC 1001 lying to the feds.
None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? I guess I just forgot what was going on.
No, I think he's asking how that happened. I don't think he means that rhetorically. I mean, he's really asking, how did that happen?
Why did I let you speak? Oh yeah, I forgot where.
So, but apparently he lied to the investigators. I guess charge him up now. Charge him with the perjury. Charge him with everything. He says he was good.
Well, did you guys see how the Anna Kasparian and the rest of them have just gone like totally disbarred? Like this guy is like, the left is like going crazy. They're like, how can you ask us to literally vote for a guy that you're telling us is too incompetent to stand trial?
Really, we need to be voting for a non-citizen at the Young Turks, or not a natural-born citizen at the Young Turks. Cenk Uyghur. That's their answer.
Yeah, that is the answer. Vote for the non-citizen to. Well, no, he is a citizen.
That's why I said not naturally born or whatever. Isn't that right? Naturally born citizen.
Yes, natural born versus naturalized.
Right. So I think he's naturalist. And by the way, somebody pointed out the interesting thing about Fetterman is, have you noticed he's become more lucid over time?
It is weird. I guess maybe.
Fetterman?
Yeah, well, Giselle's not speaking into his ear anymore.
Well, I'm assuming he's recovered too, right? He's recovered.
Well, he's using neurogum, which is what I use to keep my energy and focus. Oh, sorry.
I don't know. Mark and I were just throwing out wild speculation on this. We don't know for sure, but it almost seems like getting him away from the wife for a little while may have contributed to his getting better treatment, medication, and stabilization or something. I would never, make any claim, but there have been instances in history where Munchausen system of epoxy, things happen at home with spouses.
Yes. That or she's it's just like the Lord of the Rings and she's speaking, spells into his ear and they've been broken.
No,
just like the king of the Rohirrim.
But I do want to say one thing. I think people don't really realize how bad Biden's cognitive thing is until I actually went and said, let me do the research. Let me see how bad it is. He's been saying for the past year that his son died in Iraq. And that's just not
longer
true.
than that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but it's like
he pulls Bo out for everything though, because he'll be like,
ladies and gentlemen, Bo died in Avdiivka. That's why we need to give Ukraine all the money now.
But he says everything about Bo. Bo, anytime he's challenged on anything, Bo is somehow involved. Like he could be talking about HIV patients and something, and he'd be like, "My son Bo
had AIDS."
But he did was though. He reverted back into his classic "how dare you, I'm getting angry at you" kind of tone. He's like, every day I carry this rosary from Our Lady of, and it's like I don't remember what the rest of that is. and here he is. He came back. I couldn't even believe he came back. They got him off the stage. And he's drifting away. And then he's like, no, I got to go back and like finish this classic interview here where I'm going to be as Biden. I'm going to be my Bideniest. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to basically just start talking about foreign affairs and all the stuff I did with Israel and with Palestine and this whole situation, the humanitarian aid. And I mean, look, my biggest takeaway from this entire thing, though, aside from the lack of cognitive, is how corrupt is Biden's DOJ that they don't go after Zwanitzer? Michael Nauta is facing 6 counts of obstruction for moving boxes around. Zwanitzer was literally being disclosed information in record, and as a ghost, he was the ghostwriter for Biden.
He knows, and Biden told him, like, this is all classified stuff, but here you go, man.
Right. So he gave him classified information, which he did not have, which I think at the time he did it, he didn't have the authority to do it. I mean, perhaps arguably, to be fair and Steelman on the other side, under the EO that Obama wrote, arguably a vice president also has a right to declassify. So I don't want to misstate the law or mislead anyone on the law, because technically one could make that argument that he's considered first in line, not just for classification, but for declassification also if you parse through Obama's EO. But putting that aside, let's assume that he has the right to declassify. Michael Nauta is facing now 6 counts of obstruction because he assisted Trump in moving boxes around in Mar-a-Lago. That he basically was part of the hiding of the documents in the federal action. Zwanitzer has recordings of things that Obama disclosed to him, classified documents and classified information, and he took down and recorded him. And when he knew the investigation was ongoing, deleted them. And how that's not considered far more egregious than anything Michael Nauta did, and yet 0 charges brought by the DOJ under the pretense of, we don't think we have enough evidence here. Like it's just astonishing. It's astonishing that they don't even bother hiding their lack of objectivity.
I love Dustin Russell. He kind of pipes up a lot for America's Untold Stories. This is a story actually that I really want to sneak in, because I shared it on Twitter. I don't know if it would survive the video, but let's just say it involves D's nuts, as in DEZNUTS.
In the fridge, right? Yeah.
We'll talk about it late in the show, maybe, but it would be something that would send Viva scrambling to Google if he was here. And I also love this one. Come on, man. How did World War II end? I told Lincoln to knock it off, and guess what? King Richard signed the deal. I did that. Me.
Yeah. I called him fat and we did push-ups.
Oh my God.
It's a gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving. But speaking of world leaders, there were 2 interviews that were released around the same time, and everybody's making a comparison to that. One of which was the illustrious president of the United States, and the other one, it was the evil dictator of the supposedly reforming USSR. I mean, Russia. And I'm going to bring Ian back into it, because Ian released a clip and or a short talking about the case. I thought it was really interesting and compelling, but we immediately got pushback. I think I know where Ian is going with it. While we are not in war with Russia, there are countries, when they are sanctioned, that you still can get in trouble with treason. For example, Iran, if you're going to leak secret. Now, we're not in war with Iran. No war has been declared. But if you were to give up secrets or something else to Iran, they're part of, I forgot the name of the document, but I worked in a government contractor, and there are certain countries. No, but there are certain countries you cannot literally trade with or talk to. They're controlled. And I don't know if that's where you were going with that, Ian, in terms of a reporter and interview or whatever. Can we discuss that?
Yes, we can. It is a safe space for me to discuss this. Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing it back up. The question really was, I anticipated that there would be some sort of legal action, or at least some impetus for legal action based upon Tucker going to Russia. And the reason why I did was because way back when, I think maybe if you guys, I watch all of his videos, and he said one time, I'm trying to go to Russia. And I heard that he was having to maybe request permission from the State Department. And then when I heard with his announcement video earlier this week about that he was going to Russia and he was going to interview Putin, I was thinking, how could some US DOJ representative come up with some sort of charge to somehow, quash the interview / get it, diverted or at least discredit Tucker? And so the first thing, because I was thinking about Julian Assange and I was thinking about Edward Snowden, is the Great Espionage Act, which I tried to highlight. And again, I think the video is 1.5 minutes or something like that. But I tried to highlight how super broad, I said in the video, the words are. You mentioned, let's parse it. We're not really in war with Russia. And so this may, no. We can look at 18 U.S.C. 793 right now. Gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. The law pertains specifically to information with intent to injure the United States or to benefit a foreign country. So I just kind of brought up the thought that this may be in the works against Tucker. We'll see. At this stage, I don't know how impactful the interview was. I don't mean to bash it. There were some interesting things there, but I think Putin was quite a power mover. I don't know if you guys noticed, but he was reminds you of Donald Trump, where you try to shake his hand and Donald Trump's always going to get right out in front. He's going to always say, I'm the man. And what Putin did was really interesting. At the beginning, he said, is this going to be just some superficial interview or a long interview? And then he got Tucker to say long interview. And then he got Tucker reeled into this half-an-hour thing, which, by the way, I think lost many of the viewers at that point. I saw comments and saying, this is the most boring interview in the world. And it was all purposeful. And then whenever Tucker tried to push back, like he said, us Americans do, Putin was like, just so you know, it's my language, it's my capital, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
Grandpa giving a history lesson.
Do you think it was a filibuster like Tucker questioned on the
very
beginning?
Actually, I don't think it was a filibuster. See, no, you got to understand, Tucker's putting spin on it too. With all due respect, I think Tucker really kind of got outplayed, and frankly, it really wasn't his fault. It's, he's a famous journalist from the U.S. coming to Russia. Russia knows how much is at stake. Putin also is surrounded by yes men, and so he's very familiar with the power move concept. And so I think that, the reason why Tucker came out with that little initial introduction he was saying, listen, guys, something came out that was interesting, and that was that he would give us a history lesson for 30 minutes. I think that maybe he was just really genuine. And in my opinion, that wasn't the case. He was trying to spin it and say, listen, I really couldn't get him in the beginning because really, why did you attack Ukraine? That was really what he wanted to get out in the first minute. And so he was trying to spin it, and he said, you know what, maybe he's genuine. So anyway, I don't know how impactful it is. As a result, I don't know that there's any move to prosecute or to punish Tucker. But I did want to bring it out because the reason why is because this is going to happen again. And it's going to happen not necessarily to Tucker Carlson, but to a lot of reporters now that are going to seek out Zelensky, that are going to seek out
as they should, by the way.
Well, Zelensky gets pieces. Ian, I've seen CNN as Zelensky, what type of music he listens to.
Oh, well, Elon commented on that very well, that it's very hard to understand then when they have something in their mouth.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, but
You know,
let's be fair though. Yesterday was a puff piece too.
Yeah.
Like even though Tucker didn't want it to be a puff piece, that was a pure puff piece.
I don't think that was a puff piece. I don't think he was giving him softball questions.
He ended up letting Putin run the interview.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm gonna push back on this a little bit. Okay. While I do agree with you that, you know, and I give lengthier answers than anybody. And so when I was listening to Putin, I was like, wow, he's even worse than me. He's starting at history lessons that's starting 800 in the year 850 of Russian history and working his way through. He's 15 minutes in and he's like, and then in 1654, when we elected Biden to the Senate, he was only 29. Yeah, so he's going on and on in this lengthy Russian history. I do think he's trying to provide context to basically say, you know, your country is 250 years old. Our history with Ukraine goes back 5 times as long as that, as far as where Ukraine is a part of that, and that they're the same. They're not a different people. They are Russian. They think of themselves as being Ukrainian, but there's no difference between them. Ukraine literally means outskirts, as in the outskirts of Russia, and he's trying to show that there's such a lengthy, rich history here that he views them as being Russian, even if they don't view them as being Russian. And he finishes the entire interview by telling a story over when Russians surrounded Ukrainians and they said, "You're going to die, just surrender." And the Ukrainians themselves responded, "Russians never surrender," saying that they look at themselves internally as Russian, even though they deny it. And that's why he looks at it as a repatriation. Now, I do think he was being evasive. I think he was being defensive. I think he was being charmingly deflective, where Tucker asked him 5 times, "Why did you wait till 2022? You were in power since 2000. If it's really just about repatriation, so in that case, why are you waiting 25 years before you actually invade?" And he never really answered that until like at the very end. He sort of leaned into like, well, they're about to become part of NATO. Honestly, I think I did feel as if he would be like, I'll start giving an answer. And it's like, yeah, I talked to Biden, but then what did Biden say back? Oh, you have to ask him, knowing full well that Biden won't remember it. If he was inclined to answer it, he wouldn't remember it, which is wouldn't be inclined to answer in the first place. My point is, Tucker did push him and over and over again. He's like, but why 2022? Why then? Why then? Over and over again. When he pushed him on releasing Gorchevsky, who's American Wall Street Journal.
He asked about that, yeah.
Which I thought that was freaking. You're going to like the a dictator in the world, and you're saying to him, release this guy, and putting him on the spot in a live interview to release a reporter. I thought, and then not just taking no for an answer, but pushing harder and harder on it a couple of times. This is not at all like asking him what his favorite rock band is. So to call it a puff piece, I don't think that's a fair. Did we learn a lot about Putin? Probably not. Probably not as much.
This
as
is
we all
a
were
first.
hoping.
This is like a first salvo, though, and I think, in fairness, it's opening the door of communication in some way, shape, or form, and I think that's a critical, important step. And it pisses me off that everybody's saying no, he can't, but they're perfectly fine if Barbara Walters can interview Putin. Everybody else can interview everybody. They can interview Fidel Castro.
Saddam Hussein got interviewed on the eve of war.
Yeah.
Well, Hitler was interviewed during World War II, I believe.
Yeah, they were everybody's interviewed, yeah.
But as they should be. God, does anybody remember criminology, or am I just too old? Because a lot of times they would deliberately do interviews assuming that they would be lied to left and right, but then they would analyze what intelligence they have with what they say, do things line up, and it's of value. Even if the person is lying every single word, there's still value. It's still communication. And it frustrates the hell out of me that these people are, saying, oh, EU could sanction Tucker for this or whatever. It's like, why are you so afraid of talking? All you're doing is giving a Streisand effect. You're the best friends Tucker could ever have, because he got more juice out of that interview. Puff piece, not puff piece. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, because I think it was like a first salvo or communication, as I said before. So it may not have been hard hitting where, it was like a cross-examination, and it really couldn't be, because Putin could shut it down any second.
Yeah, there's that.
There's a dance. I mean, I do interviews myself all the time, and there is, again, a dance. Like, that is your guest. It is not. It's not a courtroom. It is an interview.
Well, hold on.
You invited them. No, so you've got to give them a chance to say their piece. And you can challenge them some, but you still have to give them the room. You can always follow up. You get a second
and
interview.
You have to think about incentives too, right? Because it's not like Putin's giving out these interviews to anybody. He's incentivized by having propaganda. He's propagandizing his own people, the West, everyone else. Okay, you don't want to take away his mouthpiece. You don't want to take away his microphone. At this point in time, I think the stupidest thing that is culturally acceptable today is this concept that, oh, I don't like your opinion. Oh, I don't like what you're doing. So let's not talk. Every single time that has ever happened in human history, people get angry and they get violent, because if you aren't giving them an outlet or any means or even any kind of incentive to come to the negotiation table, then what the hell are you doing? There is no incentive for Putin to stop. If he is expansionist, I don't think that we came away with any firmer understanding or grasp as to what his intentions are. I think he's speaking outside, both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, he's saying, okay, yeah, we're doing this in self-defense, right? We're taking necessary self-defense measures, it follows exactly what his arguments were with Croatia, with his prior territory takes. So then the question is, okay, if you're setting yourself up, you're creating a legal argument, then stick to your story. But he doesn't, because he's a product of the KGB. He can't help himself. He's saying, look, but on the flip side, you could say, look, he's trying to argue to everybody. He's trying to persuade everyone. So he's using whatever means he finds persuasive, whether that be the anti-Nazization of Ukraine, whether that be, well, we have a longstanding history and really they're Russian, whether that be, okay, from a real politic position, we are acting in self-defense. I think it's arguable that he was trying to capture the hearts and minds of everyone in utilizing different arguments. And I don't know.
Would you agree, though, that no matter what, it's still of value for all of us to hear what he's doing?
1000%. If you go in saying, yeah, this guy is trying to propagandize, obviously, sure, fine. I mean, you don't take someone at their word for everything they say, but you listen to their perspective, and it gives you great insight. How can you defeat your enemy if you don't know your enemy? I don't see Russia as our enemy, but that's my opinion, right? I don't see them as our enemy. As an international realist, I think that they would be satisfied to come to a negotiating table and stick with where they're at. Now, are they going to stay there forever? No. But is that a promise that we can actually, come to an agreement on? Absolutely not. At this point, blood's been shed, way too much blood. The best thing we can do is end the killing. And ending the killing means talking.
But let's keep it 100. The reason why he had Tucker interview him is because he thought that was going to be a friendly voice and a friendly side, right?
Sure.
We're not sitting here pretending like it's Biden going to Fox.
Just like Fidel Castro wanted Wawa.
But what I'm trying to say is it weird? Hold on, but just what I'm just trying to say is that yes, I understand the interview. I expect, and I think anybody who say he shouldn't have interviewed him is ridiculous. That's just dumb. But I do think this was a propaganda piece to say, hey, look at this person. He's got all these followers, and I'm going to be able to get my narrative out. No, damn the questions. And he was able to get his narrative out. And this whole thing about the fence and all that stuff, it's BS, because just the Finland, right? Why didn't just Tucker just ask him about Finland? Finland joined NATO after the invasion. Finland has a longer border, and Finland is more strategically placed than Ukraine, because it's next to Stalingrad, it's next to one of their largest cities, it's next to all of their assets. Yeah, Leningrad, and next to all of their assets in the north. So, and they joined NATO. So if this is really about the fence, then why allow Finland in? So,
because Finland is not, from an international politics standpoint, it does not provide him the same geopolitical leverage that Ukraine does in terms of self-defense. That's the thing. For him, Finland isn't a loss. For him, Ukraine is a huge loss. It's right up on the border. And beyond that, we made agreements with him that we wouldn't be playing these games. And NATO and the West continue to push and push and push. So does he have an argument there? He absolutely does. We didn't make an agreement with Finland. That is not the same agreement we had.
Let me just make sure. Finland has that super long land border.
Yeah.
Finland is next to Leningrad, and Finland is next to all their
Because
nuclear
It's
assets
St.
in the
Petersburg,
north.
by the way, Nate. I
Okay,
think it's St. Petersburg
I
now.
keep saying Leningrad.
Well, I said St. Petersburg as well, but
to say that Leningrad, that Finland is not strategically.
Realistically, Ukraine has natural resource has 100 times the natural resources of Finland. I mean, Finland's major export.
I'm sorry.
pictures
Did
of
our
scenery.
CIA try and overthrow Finland's president?
No.
Right. Okay,
But-
so that's what I'm saying is what his argument is look, if you're going to be putting in puppet regimes right along our border, then we're going to bounce back. That's his argument. I'm not saying it's valid. I'm just saying I think that there is a legitimate argument to be made.
No,
when there was
also
a
the history of
promise that
Finland.
everything was going to remain the status quo.
Last time I checked, too, Finland was not expansionist either. Finland was kind of like a leave me the F alone type. Okay, well,
They have a history, but no, I agree with you. I don't think it's expansionist, not in the same way that Ukraine is.
Well, how would Ukraine be expansionist? What do you mean? I don't understand. How you
In terms of trying to bring Europe in, Finland is a lot.
Finland, it's NATO, join NATO.
I thought you meant like ethnic expansion because
Yeah,
both those countries had their own ideas of a greater Finland or a greater Ukraine.
Look,
and Russia took Finland's territory to make it more there's a whole bunch of history.
I don't know how it is that anyone listens to Zelensky or Putin and doesn't like them less the more and disbelieve them more the more you listen to them. Because honestly, I heard very little from Putin and I was like, I don't know that he's as terrible as he is. When I heard him yesterday, I ended up walking away feeling like, okay, I just listened to 2 hours of him trying to propagandize me, including information like trying to sell me on Adolf had no choice but to go into Poland. You spend 30 minutes. You spend 30 minutes on a history lesson. I'm like, wow, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of this history. And then he concludes with Adolf. So Adolf had no choice but to go into Poland. And I'm like, wait, if that's your perspective on world history, I don't know that I can.
Oh, sweetie, he glazed right over the freaking Holodomor. The Holodomor, it was just re-education, don't you know? We're just trying to help the ethnic population and the ethnic cleansing. So what? I mean, the guy obviously had his own spin on things, but I agree with you.
The last 2 years, anyone who was pro-Ukraine was looking at me as if I was, Putin's puppet, and I was just like, and the entire time is I don't trust when people are trying to lie to me and say if we don't stop him here, he's going to go into Poland because I don't believe Putin when he says I'm not going to Poland because I have to trust him on his word. I believe it because I think he's definitely very intelligent and to go to invade NATO would be moronic. It would be so stupid to start, and he cares about his own self-interest. So why would he do that? It doesn't make any sense to force America's hand to come into direct conflict rather than this proxy war. So he would be a moron for doing that. And that's why I know he's not going to Poland. And then people are trying to sell me on the idea that that Ukraine is the last line of defense before he invades NATO. They're lying to me. They're lying to all of us to try and make us all war hawks and say, yeah, send billions of dollars to Ukraine. And my point is, I don't have hesitancy about saying this whole push for Ukrainian war that America should support it, I think is filled with tons and tons of lies. And when Putin comes out in an interview with Tucker, I think that's filled with tons and tons of lies. And we have to sit here and try to parse out what makes the most sense and then ask ourselves why the heck we really need to be engaged in this conflict. That's where I'm at on this.
And that makes sense. That actually makes sense. Yeah.
That's it. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Look, we're not saying that Putin's right. But I think it's important to acknowledge, somewhere in what he was saying, there were some truths. I mean, we're not going to pretend like he wasn't speaking some truths, and that's part of propagandizing, right? You want to build that credibility. That's fine.
That's effective propagandizing.
But where he did hit some serious truths was to say, yeah, you talk about propagandizing. Your country has it made, buddy. So don't make any comparisons there. He's not wrong. He isn't. And so I think where people need to wake up is, look, the narrative that you're being fed is exactly that. It's a narrative, as much as Putin's narrative is a narrative. And we need to determine as an American people what we believe, what we're willing to die for, because that's ultimately the question. Russia is there. They're willing to they're dying. Okay. They don't care if their people die. They're all throwing their bodies in there. Do we want to do the same? That's the question. And if the answer is no, then why the hell are we sending billions and billions of dollars there so that Ukrainians can throw their bodies?
One thing I find it interesting that we say, okay, you would be insane to attack NATO, which I think would be insanity, right? That would be insane. But wouldn't it be just as insane for NATO to invade Russia, the largest nuclear arsenals in the world, right? So it's almost like on one side we're saying, well, he's the smart one, he'd be insane to invade, but we would be stupid enough to invade Russia with the largest nuclear arsenals on the planet.
We don't have to invade Russia. He spoke it himself. He said it's the pressure, it's the control.
Let me finish my point, Danny. So what the point is that I think the military aspect of this doesn't make sense, because obviously, even if you look at the regions that he's attacking, they all have oil rich. For instance, like when he went after Crimea, they had all those offshore oil things. So it was another $1 trillion into the Russian economy. Okay, we can pretend that it's all about strategic stuff, but there's a lot of oil there that he would gain from that. Of course, we do that, but so I'm not saying that we don't.
So we should respect that. It's like we're two alpha dogs. Respect each other and stay out of each other's business.
Yeah. I'm saying we can throw away logical fallacies all we want, right? Just because they do it, we should be able to do it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the reality is that this is an oil war in Ukraine, and if it was really about defense, then you start talking about Finland, and people, no, not Finland. But I think the reality of it is this is a strategic move to say we don't want them in NATO, and on top of that, they have all these oil exports that we can definitely take, and I think that's the reason why.
That's very fair.
It's natural gas as much as it is
oil. That's very fair.
And the breadbasket.
It's drilling.
They have amazingly fertile ground throughout Ukraine. It's called the breadbasket of the world.
They say you can plant a boot in Ukraine, and in 20 years you'll have crops and crops of wheat. So that's the saying in Ukraine. You literally can plant a boot there and anything, and you'll have food in 5 years. So
whereas Finland probably not as bountiful.
Right.
No, it's just a strategic location to the nukes in the north and the largest city in Russia.
Yeah, by the way, Nate, you were wrong about the border length. Finland being larger than Ukraine.
It's the opposite way around, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just
wanted
to
still really long. And most of it's uninhabited forests. So.
Mm-hmm. So there was a buffer. But okay, so while we're talking about extremely important geopolitics, let's shift it from U.S. politics, world politics to galaxy politics. And Gina Carano is currently suing Disney and quoted in a galaxy far, far away, or some variant of it, to open the lawsuit. And I think, Nate, you've done a video on that?
Yeah, I have done a video on it, but I think, well, so just so everybody understands, she's suing for three things. She's saying that she was fired because of her political beliefs. That firing also encompassed the retaliation because they said that she couldn't be hired again, and they wouldn't do this and defamed her in the public. Mm-hmm. And then third is that it was sex discrimination because she's a woman and her male counterparts made political things on Twitter, and she was the only one that was fired, but her male counterparts were. So she's doing it. Also, this is diversity jurisdiction under state law. So it's California labor law section 1101, which prohibits the discipline or firing of any employees based on political opinions. And what's the last thing? So, and she's only asking, you hear this from a lot from the left side, but she's only asking for $75,000 as of right now. But that's because that's a threshold for diversity cases. But it's $75,000 at a minimum and up. So those are essentially her three causes of action. And reading through the lawsuit, I think she has a case, but I don't think it's a sure thing. But I think
I did a video on it too, read through the lawsuit myself, and having been a California attorney for over 20 years, I think she picked the right law. There's one question about whether or not it'd be remanded to state court because it appears that most of her claims arise under California laws, and there could be some issue there. But regardless, the lawsuit will go forward. And I got to tell you, having gone through it and having just broken it down, a lot of my videos are really short, so I have to really explain things in very short amount of words and use, be very specific. And in this situation, if you look at what happened, as far as the things that she tweeted out, for the most part, there's other things on Instagram and things, but bottom line, it is quite innocuous type content. And then she does a nice kind of comparison of tweets and other posts
Pedro
from
Pascal.
other media stars. And we're not just talking about like stars in general. We're talking about people from the show.
Yeah.
Right, Pedro Pascal,
Pablo
literally at the same
Pascal,
time.
if I'm pronouncing it right, had tweeted out a symbol of NAZI. So really, to me, while she alleges a couple of different things, she doesn't allege a cause of action for defamation. She does mention defamation, which is interesting. I don't know why she didn't plead for
because the statute of limitations. They brought this 3 years late.
That's a year.
They only have a year for defamation. It's intentional torts.
Okay, good
so
call.
that's probably why. I'm sure that's why they left that out.
Okay.
I mean, please continue. I want to let you finish before.
No, that's true. We could talk more about the actual statements, but it may anyway. But yeah, the bottom line is, the $75,000. She's going to go for many millions of dollars. In my video, I actually talked about the fact that Disney and the executives all but promised her $2.5 million a year going forward for season 3 and this other Star Wars show. So, with the backing of Elon Musk, and you know that his influence is in the pleadings. If you read the complaint, I'm sure he read it over himself. And
this
said,
is a repeat.
Funny.
This is a repeat of Peter Thiel.
Jokes, yeah.
Peter Thiel funded
but
Hulk
I think she's going to
Hogan.
go for many millions of dollars. And frankly, and I'm trying to be very objective, I think that she has a really good case, and it's going to be settled at some point.
Yeah. So you do think you think these will survive under California law?
I do think they will. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's pretty clear, especially how liberal California law is.
Well, first she's doing this. This is under diversity. So even if these are state law claims, because she's saying that Disney's a Florida company and she's in California, so she's doing it under diversity jurisdiction. So I'm saying it may stay in federal court based on that.
Yeah, but you can sue someone in state court from a different state. They just happen to choose this for a number of different reasons. I think it's probably because the lawyers preferred this federal procedure. But yeah, it may be remanded at some point. It doesn't ring in federal causes of action. I mean, I know there's diversity of jurisdiction, but the judge could make that decision.
Well, I would think so. I have a very different take from you, Ian, on this entire thing. And I mean, look. So the reason I think she went to California, because California is not going to be she's obviously right leaning, right? That's going to come out if she makes it to trial. So that will obviously come out in front of a jury, which we can anticipate is likely going to be filled largely with lefties, right? So, and this is really political type of case. It's about political free speech, and it's free speech that's against the woke agenda. So we can anticipate that her jury is likely to be hostile to her. So when we're analyzing why she's in California, to me, the most likely basis is that California is unique in that they allow causes of action for discrimination based on political affiliation, which is not that common across the country. So that's likely why she didn't want to sue in Florida, where you would expect that she would have a far more based jury pool to select from,
or right? Montana, where she's from.
Or Montana, right? So, but that's why she wants to go to. I would think she wants to go to California so she can rely on California local state law to have a cause of action. If she had her defamation case and she brought this within a year of when it happened, I think she would have been far preferable to end up in Florida rather than in California. I think she was forced into California because she needed those two causes of action. I don't know much about California labor law. You certainly are far more expert at that, and I will defer to you with respect to those causes of action. I don't think that her claims for sexual discrimination are very strong. And the reason that third claim I don't think is particularly strong is because it's not that hard to distinguish between the statements that were made by Pedro Pascal or Carl Weathers compared to her statements. They each had one-offs as opposed to her having this continuing conflagration going on for a long time. And I think that Disney can very easily distinguish between the public specter as to what happened with those guys compared to what happened with Gina Carano.
Well,
can I point something?
Just to that point, in the lawsuit, when it comes to Pedro Pascal, she lists all of his suspect tweets, and it's not just one. There are a lot. Like this tweet about conservatives, this 45 looking like a SWAT sticker. This is all Pedro Pascal. Comparing the kids.
Yeah, that's gross. I saw that and I was so angry.
So all this is Pedro Pascal again. Yeah. She's literally listing all of his political tweets and saying he's just saying the same thing I'm saying, except on their opposite side.
And just to jump in right here on this exact point, you talked about sexual discrimination. I tend to agree, but the majority of the case, the main thrust of the case, is political discrimination.
Right. Yes, I agree.
So that's
with you.
when I say that
agree
she has
with
a good case, I'm not talking on the sexual discrimination. I'm
right.
talking about defamation,
and that's the first two causes of action. That's
Yes.
the first, and that's why she's in California, because that's the California political discrimination, and that's why she's there. Because I don't. So then the question ultimately comes down is, can she find a jury pool which will give her a fair shot, even though she's saying I was politically discriminated because I'm too right leaning, standing in front of a jury pool which is likely to be left leaning, and that's really the question as to and when we're analyzing her likelihood of success here, which is why look, she might have. I'm not saying she doesn't have a valid cause of action. Do I think she was wrong? 1,000%. I actually think Pedro Pascal is vile. I can't watch The Mandalorian because he's in it. Okay, that's how much I despise that guy. He's gross and disgusting, and the way they treated her is gross and disgusting. She was completely wrong. I'm simply analyzing, trying to use, my predict the future here. I don't love the sexual discrimination claims. I do think it's distinguishable, and the political claims on number 1 and 2. Those two causes of action. I have concerns about her ability to manage success in front of a liberal jury pool. That's where I'm at.
If it does remain in federal court, summary judgment is much stronger. And I don't think her purpose is to go through a Johnny Depp situation. I think she wants a settlement. I think she wants a multi-million-dollar settlement.
I hope she gets it.
Disney can totally afford. And they also, if it does stay in federal court, it's very possible, because I've done this many times. I used to work for a federal judge, where she could make a motion for summary judgment based upon the political discrimination claim and potentially have no issue of fact because of all the different stuff that's in the complaint itself. It's almost like an issue of law. Was she discriminated against by her because of her political beliefs? We see other actors being political. We see her kind of being political. I mean, really just response tweets to hate that is online.
Can I point something out that's the biggest factor of all here? Like Joe, you said, she was too late to do that defamation suit, et cetera. You're forgetting the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Potentially, Elon Musk is funding this whole damn thing, just like Peter Thiel. So all of a sudden, we're in 2024, and she's got free money from a benefactor to bring whatever suit there is. And it may or may not be completely up to her what's going to happen or not, because Elon is using this as a personal vendetta against Bob Iger and Disney. And it is a very significant consideration, whether it's settled or not settled. It's literally to run them through a ringer.
Right.
I feel, and drag it through the public, get every bit of discovery possible. Did you see the tweet he put out when he put out with the Disney thing? So he put out the Disney procedure, and then he's put out a quote tweet saying, I will fund anybody. So he's out there dredging, trolling, whatever you want, to grab every case he can to attack Iger and Disney. This is a vendetta. And I think that you can't ever lose sight on that, because you're in the weeds with her and the case and the merits. I get all that, but it's interesting.
Go ahead, Danny.
Go, Danny.
Sorry, I was just going to say, as someone who is a conservative Republican attorney woman in my perspective field, I think I know a little bit about what it feels like when literally your entire law school hates you more than your male counterparts. And I'll tell you why. It's because they treat you and it's similar, unfortunately, with people in the LGBTQ community and people who aren't white. Oftentimes you're treated as basically a sex traitor, a gender traitor. How dare you? How dare you align yourself that way? So I think that the two claims, if this attorney plays his cards right and he's really good at weaving the arguments together, I think both survive. I really do, because they both feed into one another. It's not just the political discrimination. It's the political discrimination on top of the fact that she's a woman that becomes so much more hostile and so much more vitriolic. And so if she can demonstrate that, I think both claims survive.
I think they survive. I'm only trying to just look. The reason I bring this up is because I don't want people who watch us to get who have issues with
overly
Disney
excited
and have good reason to have issues with Disney to be overly excited, like, oh, Disney's going down here, when I can see potential pitfalls in her ability to ultimately prevail in this lawsuit. Am I happy she filed it? Yes. I'm just trying to to cool down the excitement. And I guess I'm throwing fire. I'm throwing water on the excited fire, and I'm just trying to look at it with reality as to the concerns I have for her long-term success in this action. That's all.
Ooh, Joe, don't ruin our fun.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a lot like Johnny Depp,
Party
by the way.
pooper.
Most of the people I have it. There's a history on this channel. If you guys want to look back, the majority of lawyers said that Johnny Depp was screwed.
Was going to lose. We all said
absolutely going to lose.
We all said
Only person who said no was
Legal Bites.
Alita. Legal Bites. I don't know, Joe. I don't.
Joe,
I'll tell you how I know that's true, because I wasn't following the lawsuit until it actually started, until they were in court.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. He said before.
Neither did I.
Yeah, he said before.
Okay. I thought you. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were talking about beforehand. Okay,
and even in court, I don't think he won. I think that Amber Heard lost.
Yeah,
but I think even
I called his win when he was
Carano
on the stand.
lawsuit,
Before she got on the stand, I called his win.
I think this Gina Carano lawsuit. I think there are issues in the drafting, which I think kind of plays against itself. Like, for instance, she's arguing at one point that they fired me because of this tweet, because of my political position on this tweet. But then she goes on to say that the tweet didn't really espouse a political position. So and then when you read the tweet, you see the tweet, it's like, it doesn't say it's for conservative. It's kind of politically neutral. So it's one of those things where, well, if you're saying they're firing you for having a political position, but then admitting that the tweet that they're firing you doesn't really espouse a political position, she puts other tweets in context, but that kind of seems like the one thing that bothers me about it. Now, I do think this is going to survive a motion to dismiss, and I do think this may go to trial, and I do think this is likely going to settle. But I do think here, like what Joe was saying about the sex claim, I think I'm going for political discrimination, but in the alternative,
right?
Here's the sex claim,
Yeah.
and so it gives me the two bites of the apple.
And I actually have a question for Ian. I don't think you guys have touched on this yet, but part of her complaint, she's asking for a specific performance. She wants back on the show. How strong is that in California as far as a remedy?
It's not strong at all. And frankly, there is a question relating to whether or not she was an employee. I brought that up in my video, like one little second, because what's interesting is that when Disney came out and said they did not terminate her, when they said she's not on the show, they said, someone asked a question and she said, she's not under the employ of Disney and won't be in the future.
Yeah, it says Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilms, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Lucasfilm spokesman said, nevertheless, her social media posts generated people based on their cultural and religious identities are important and unacceptable.
One more thing, folks, and Ian, maybe you could speak to this. She is in SAG. This is a union issue too.
Yes.
And the contracts are union oriented.
And they have an obligation to represent her.
Film Actors Guild, not the Screen Actors Guild.
Well,
I saw Team America World Police.
Well, the funny thing about
if she's not an employee, then the sex discrimination claim, can she still hang her hat on that?
Not the one alleged. If you look at the actual language of the statute, it talks about employees. So it is, I kind of like touched on it, but it is a concern. I would need to look more into, because we don't have that available. It's not in the complaint. Maybe it'll be in subsequent briefing, but we don't know what the status, the contractual status is. I did look it up, and evidently in these situations where she's considered, and please forgive the wording, a day player or something similar to that, they count that as being an employee. But I have not looked at the contracts, and I could see them saying, listen, none of this is applicable because she was an independent contractor. She was paid 25 G's per show. Thanks for doing what you did. We don't want you anymore. Just like I could say, sorry, Eric, I don't want you anymore because you're an independent contractor, and that's it. And I could fire you for any reason. So there is that issue.
And then I do think that the SAG/AFTRA may have to come into it too, because Disney is working with these unions, and there are certain expectations for people who are performing roles that goes beyond their contract directly with her, I believe.
Well, and
true, and also sometimes there's an admin remedy. There's a requirement that you need to give notice pursuant to the contract before you bring the lawsuit. Potentially, it could be removed for arbitration. So there's a lot of issues there, and that may be one of the reasons why it's in California / in the federal court. I don't know. I don't know yet.
But there's also the interesting part about the unions. They have a duty of fair representation. So if she doesn't, if they which, if you guys aren't aware, that's like the one time where a person can sue the union and the company, and they both have to sit there and say, no, we both did a good job. We are, and that's something I wonder if she's possibly looked into, because those are very interesting labor law cases.
One thing with this lawsuit, because here it is she goes on line 102 talking about the post that got her fired, the hashtag fire Gina Carano. But right under it, because again, she's saying she says Gina made no mention of political party or a particular point of view, compared no one of the group of the Jewish people to the Holocaust. Rather, she noted the danger that arises. So I think they're gonna make an issue about, okay, if you're claiming that it wasn't a political viewpoint, then and you're saying we fired you over this post, then how are you now giving us a cause of action for violating your political viewpoint? It doesn't make it kind of reads that way.
Yeah, but you know what?
That's
If you
a
look
really
at the other
fair
stuff,
argument.
it can be construed as political. We're just picking these provisions right now. If you look, she made some COVID discussion too. So I don't know how strong that is. Under California law, you just have to make the case that there's political discrimination, even in one instance, to be able to recover. So maybe, but I don't think that's going to win the day.
Wow. Oh my God, it's a silence. So I guess we wrapped up that case.
No, those are all really great arguments for reasons why it may get tossed. And I didn't know those. It really probably could get tossed.
What is the Uber law though that was referenced as far as changing the definition of employees in California?
Is it because of the gig thing?
Yeah, gig workers. That, by the way, that was a wonderful piece of karma. I don't know if you guys remember this, but remember famously, and this goes all the way back to Tim Pool on Joe Rogan with Jack Dorsey of Twitter, but a lot of people were losing their jobs in factories and things like that, and a lot of reporters were writing "learn to code." They're like, hey, if you just go ahead and, you got to find new skills. You got to learn to code. I don't know if you remember all this. Then they pushed through the Uber law, and the Uber law was to force Uber to treat people as employees and thus limit their hours if they were not actually employees. And people celebrated this, specifically those who were in the, quote, tech press, who were all in California, and they all also were gig workers. And then they found out they lost their jobs because of the same law. And when they started to cry about it, the best part was everybody was writing back to them on Twitter, learn to code. And of course, they couldn't handle that, and the words were taken out. Now, I'm sorry, Danny, was that a fair explanation?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I wonder if that's going to give us that nice hook that we need to overcome that flaw.
Well, the funny thing is, learn to code became a thing you get banned for on Twitter.
Exactly.
And you could say that to 20% of the LA Times journalist staff, that they can learn to code also.
Make learn to code great again.
It's not enough.
Learn to AI prompt.
You may think you hate journalists, but you don't hate them enough.
Facts.
Hey, journalists did you all a favor. The most hated profession in America for a while was lawyers, and you managed to float above it now. Journalists are under you.
Well,
I got both.
That's from Joe.
I got
mad
both.
Joe looks in that picture.
Yeah, no, that's my Trump look. That's my Trump mug look. My Trump mugshot look.
Joe, you should do one more thing. It'll be a trifecta of evil. Go run for office.
Yeah, it's just
there
it is. The same thing. A lawyer. Yeah, is that perfect? That'd be amazing.
Lawyer, journalist, politician. Yes, you would have the full triad of evil.
Also, for those dumbasses in the chat who are like, "Oh my God, she's saying as a woman," bitches. Shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. I ran for office, okay? I'm an attorney. I'm just saying,
as a woman.
As a lawyer, as a woman. Shut up. That's all.
Speaking of...
As a dog mom.
Speaking of...
As a woman.
Speaking of journalists who are having issues, you saw about that Deadspin with the Kansas City Chief.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
As he should, by the way.
What?
You know what?
Wait, what happened?
Retracted. Oh, okay. There's a kid.
Get the picture. Get the picture.
Somebody find the
kid in the headdress.
Yeah, the kid in the headdress.
There's a kid, and they reported him as having blackface because they cut the shot to where only half of his face was shown, and it happened to be painted black. Now, the other side of his face was painted red, but they cropped the photo so it showed him in blackface. And Deadspin, a reporter, wrote about it saying that, this is a kid in Kansas City. He's wearing blackface, blah, blah, blah. They got called out for it.
Deadspin has money. Please tell me they have money.
Oh, Deadspin, by the way, was
sharing
formerly
a picture of the kid.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want a Covington recovery, baby.
That's the cutest little kid.
Oh,
there's an article.
It gets even better though.
Hold on,
because
Deadspin. Was under Gawker, guys. Deadspin used to be part of Gawker.
Yeah, so Deadspin essentially, I covered this story when it first came out. Now this kid and his guardians, his parents are suing Deadspin because that's what Deadspin put about him. They showed half his face, and they wrote an article that the Kansas City Chiefs need to address their issues with blackface and kids wearing a headdress and appropriating a headdress. As it turns out, this little kid is.
Well, hold on, Joe. You're missing this part because then they pushed back and they said, no, it's not blackface. The original author or reporter, whatever you want to call him, the idiot that wrote the thing, doubled down. He said, you don't get it. It's even worse. He's offending both minorities of blacks and Native Americans. And then it turns out that the kid is Native American.
It was like a registered member of a tribe.
His grandfather is alive and is the head of a tribe. He's like the Chumash tribes or something, the Chumash Indians or something. But it's a great story. Which now I'm so thrilled to see that they're actually suing him, and I hope they put Deadspin out of business.
And the writer's name is Karen too.
The writer's name is Karen. I was going to mention.
Shut up.
But
a man named Karen, a black man named
Caron.
Yes, I hate to burst the bubble here though, but this is going to be difficult because calling someone a racist generally is an opinion.
No, but they're saying it is blackface. They're saying he's in blackface.
Yeah, they're saying he took action. They didn't call him a racist. They said that he would do a particular action.
They were saying they're saying he's a race. They're saying that he's racist and racism. Even with the Covenant kids had the same problem. Saying someone's racist is generally subjective.
Well, hold on.
So then hold on. So then if that's the case, I mean, all the guy did was sit there and smirk, right? Like awkwardly because he has friggin'. What are they? The Hebrew Israelites on the left yelling at him. He's getting banged a drum in his face. Obviously, he's smirking because he's like, "What the hell is going on?" Like I would be doing the same thing.
Nick Sandman won though, Nate.
Nick Sandman didn't win. He settled. He settled because they went to Discovery and they settled out of Discovery.
But they still settled. You still got something.
You could say it's winning, but I'm saying generally, even in the Nick Sandman lawsuit, I can pull it up. The judge went through, and every time they called Nick Sandman racist, he said this is not actionable opinion.
Interesting.
In the Nick Sandman lawsuit, he did get something, but in that lawsuit, he literally says that.
Here's the difference, though. Okay, if I say Nate is a racist, that's a subjective opinion, and obviously it's not a statement of fact. Because it's not a statement of fact, it's not going to be actionable in a defamation suit. Okay. However, if I say here's a picture, here's him, he's a kid who's wearing blackface, and blackface clearly has a meaning of covering your face in black, and you're purposefully hiding the fact that half his face is red and that he's wearing team colors. That is a factual assertion that he's wearing blackface that is not true, and that you're hiding from your audience. That's not a subjective thing. And is there a subjective opinion that people will draw that if someone is wearing blackface, that implies they're racist? Yes. And that's, painting a false light and things of that. And there could be causes of action depending on the jurisdiction. But when you're making a factual assertion that he's in blackface when he's not.
Isn't blackface a judgment call itself?
Yes. What is blackface?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
That's Justin Trudeau.
It's subjective. And Joe, just to clarify, the law, exactly what you said, if you actually present the facts, like say, hey, here's a kid in blackface, and show that picture and say, it's my opinion that this is racist. Generally, the courts say, if you present the facts on which your opinion is based, it's ultimately protected under First Amendment speech because you're saying, it's my opinion that these facts are saying what they are. So what you just said makes it even more protected under First Amendment.
Does he have? Hold on. Does he have?
I can bring up the case if you want.
I have a question, and it may be a silly and stupid argument, but the fact that he's an Indian, like Native American, and anybody who comes at me with the freaking term Indian, go F off. Because there's a lot of debate in indigenous groups. So anyway,
yes. I grew up in Arizona. They call themselves Indians.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate. There's a reason the Smithsonian is called the Native American, or the Museum of the Indian Native American, or something like that. So anyway, the fact that he's a Native American, though, indigenous person, and later on they say that he's being racist and offensive towards Native Americans and implying that he's dressing up in red face. Does he have a claim? Because it's objectively, like, there's no way that could be the case that
no,
like,
I mean, people, first of all, it's
like,
not super
aren't they
relevant.
implying he's white? I know that's a stupid argument. I'm just saying, like they could have done a simple fact check on that.
Hold on, let's just pause for a second. It's not a matter of lack of fact checking. That's the point. It's not a matter of lack of fact checking. These authors of the Karen knew that he was wearing black and red face. The camera kept panning over him, showing this cute little kid dressed up in Chiefs colors with the headdress. They purposefully. Danny.
I'm just going to the standard. I'm saying that they're held to a higher standard. That's
right.
all. But
the point. But here's the thing. Look, and I will admit that we've seen courts say literally that the word literally does not mean literally. Okay, so
Rachel Maddow.
It's in context, yeah.
Right. So which is astonishing that we've seen courts bend over backwards to protect reporters and say that everyone knows that if you say something that you can say the words, I'm deadly serious when I say this is not a joke, this is not sarcasm, this is what it is. And it's like the court will later turn around and say that was obviously sarcasm, and that was obviously not that was a statement of opinion, and they will flip words on their head. So can that happen here to protect Deadspin? Definitely. But
interesting, yeah.
But I'm simply saying this is a statement of fact. Now, might they parse out that blackface could be interpreted as being half your face black when no one actually uses that way? Well, we've seen what they've done with the word literally, so they might parse it out that way. I respectfully submit that I think that's a backward perspective, because the term blackface has a definition that you're covering your face in black in order to mimic the artists from a century ago who used to literally put on blackface, and it was considered something that was offensive or mockery of black people. So
what about picking on a child, by the way?
Wait, Joe, if that's true, if courts have interpreted literally even to be subjective, then isn't Nate's argument more correct that they're going to say that this was an opinion and that blackface is too subjective for
that was one trial court, which
okay.
means that's termination. That's not governing law. That was one trial court. I mean, but I'm simply saying, to a lay person who hears the term blackface, that is a statement of fact. It's not a statement of opinion. It's a statement of fact, which leads people to draw certain opinions about him, and it's a false statement of fact, which is designed to purposefully be derogatory about who he is as a person. So in your classic law school understanding as to what defamation is, to me, this is defamation. I'm simply recognizing that we've seen, particularly in California, that courts seem to be loath to recognize defamation even when it's staring them in the face. That's my point.
Yeah, well, I just want to add one more thing, and I hate to always be the guy that goes to 29,000 feet. I mean, the real plan on this is they don't want to see someday this little kid being deposed, and maybe that being a public deposition. They do not want to see him cross-examined on a trial stand. This is just an opportunity, with all due respect, for them to be able to get some money out of this thing, and I'm sure it will settle just like it did with the Sandman
Yeah, this
case.
is paying for his college.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're hoping
this is almost like it's required. A lawyer is duty bound to do this.
Yeah, I agree. Hold on, because they pushed back too. They said, take it back. Take it back. Stop it. Take it back. And Karen kept doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down. He would not take it back. That's the whole issue here. It's like they have to go forward with it, if anything, to nuke the reporter and the publication for being a bully to a child, in my opinion. This is a child. That should be a factor. This is not a public figure.
100%.
This is a kid who has team spirit, who's being mocked and picked on. And one more thing. The Shogi Show said, to be more accurate, the kid's biracial. He isn't full-blooded Native American. That's incorrect. If a tribe accepts a person as being part of the tribe, they are 100% a tribal member.
True.
So that's bullshit. He may have a mix or whatever else, but in terms of law with Indian tribes and things like that, he is absolutely an Indian. Sorry, go on.
But just to add a little bit to this, what behind the scenes happens is some event like this happens in the public and people get outraged one way or the other. And so immediately NGOs and other types of corporations contact them and say, listen, we're going to fund it all. We just need to get a lawyer in there to advise you on how to elicit evidence, be able to get this kind of settlement. And then they take their 30 to 40% at the end of the case. So with all due respect, I hate to go, not to get into the nitty gritty, but that's what this is. This is like a college fund situation.
I also think, especially in like what they're trying to do in Florida, this actually goes to the point what they're trying to do in Florida. In Florida, they're trying to make it in statute that things like racism, sexism, transphobia are defamatory, and that people can recover for those particular instances, because they even recognize that if you say those particular things,
sure,
there's a social
penalty
issue that happens here, because you'll lose your job, you lose all this. So they're saying that because of those consequences, it should be seen as defamatory if the person can prove that whatever evidence you've showed that they may be racist is false. So I think if he was suing in Florida under that law, he's good to go.
I hope that or in Kansas.
I would love that law everywhere. They need law. No, they need that law, because we have race baiters who take advantage of that crap and get away with saying whatever the hell they want, and it does cause actual harm to people. If they get a reputation as something they are not, they're unable to get jobs, they're mocked by the community, things like that. Absolutely. I hope that law is contagious in every state polls.
But then it has to get past the Supreme Court, because essentially you are, what, again, because it comes, is being racism or racism, is that something objective that we can point to? And I think that's what the Supreme Court says it's not. So that's why you can do it.
I wonder why they filed in Delaware.
It's not objective. What do you mean? It's not offensive? It's not objective?
It's not an objective fact in which could be proven true or false. Everybody's interpretation of what racism is subjective. So what you believe may be racist is different than what someone else believes is racist. And we debate that every week on the show, right? Like Fannie Willis is saying that people challenging her is racist, right? And we're all saying that's obviously not racist. So,
but I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying there are factual assertions here that they flat out lied about, which changes it from being an opinion about racism. And to me, that's a very important distinction here.
The Supreme Court could figure out porn.
Well, for instance,
they know they see it. I mean, can't you say the same argument for racism?
I mean, I agree with you, but I also agree with Nate. Here's the thing, from a public policy standpoint, though. We need people to have bad opinions about other people. How they broadcast them is what matters here. And I think what I was trying to say, though, is that, you're going to have to prove, if you want this claim to go forward, he's a private individual. Sure. There's an even higher standard for defaming him that he doesn't have to show. It's a lower standard for him. I mean, it's a higher standard for them to defend themselves. Right. And they didn't do anything that the media is required to do in the publishing of this story. And is it a story? Yeah. Is it an opinion piece? No. That's what you guys are telling me, right? This was reported as news.
What is
not
news
opinion
versus an opinion? I can't tell anymore. Every article
and so that's going to be the problem. Is this a news story, or is this editorializing an opinion? If they couch it in this was an opinion piece, it wasn't like they were trying to create news. I mean, there's a million ways to spin this, and I think they're kind of dead in the water in terms of the claim against them. But I agree with you guys. Hopefully they can at least continue to bash them, utilize this lawsuit to show what a freaking joke this company is, to the degree that the company just says, okay, we're really sorry. Let's set up a scholarship in your name and we'll put all this money into it. And let's just make this go away.
Well, by the way, when you talk about opinion piece and real news, I can't tell the difference anymore. How many times have you read an article, straight news article, and they always have an assertion in there, like Trump's wildly disaccurate claims, or all these little editorial slip-in snipes all over the place. It's maddening. It's maddening. I could go to just about any article anymore, and they're absolutely not objective journalism.
I think we need to take a look at our defamation laws and our standards that we've put on them, given the state of media today. Just the pure fact that we don't have simple news. We don't have someone saying, "Yeah, a car hit a freaking light pole." We have instead a out of control driver was careening down the sideway and ran into it. If that's going to be the way that we interpret news anymore, we really do need to take a look at what our standards are, and maybe this. Those are my thoughts. Sorry.
No, we haven't just now discovered disinformation, Matthew Cooper. We're saying it is spinning so far beyond control. And using Danny's, yes, that is a perfect analogy. The reckless movement of this driver is automatically editorializing.
Right. And so if that's the case, then, the media used to hide behind the shield of saying, oh, well, it's an opinion piece. It's not actual journalism. We're not stating fact. And no reasonable person reading this would assume that this is a factual statement, that this is actually an opinion statement. We can't make no one can tell the difference anymore is the other problem. Like the reasonable man, the reasonable standard doesn't really, it needs to be in question. What was reasonable, what was acceptable before is not anymore.
Actually, that's a perfect segue. Somebody suggested that we cover this story, and I have to cover it. If simply for the headline, everybody just look at the headline and see if anything jumps out at you.
160 counts of murder.
You got it in one. Exactly. How is somebody out and awaiting trial on 160 counts of murder?
Must have connections with the community.
Very big connections with the community.
Is this a real story? What?
This is a real story.
I think that might not be. I think that's a typo.
I don't think so, because I saw multiple reports about this guy with 160 counts.
Here we go again. More than 160 counts of murder. This could be an AI written story, by the way, guys. This could be. So somebody pointed out earlier, because I pointed that out. It's like, what the hell's going on here? And they said, well, they probably mean 160 counts, including murder. But I'm sorry. I just love the headline. And I think this is a perfect example of modern journalism.
That is hilarious.
From Tim, good old Tim here, Tim Hecke.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's
maybe
actually
160 counts or something, not murder. Yeah.
They say the article says 160 counts of murder, 9 counts of armed robbery, and 16 counts of attempted vehicular hijacking. Yeah,
yes.
This can't be. This cannot be.
Yeah, but unless it was a military grade weapon, was it an explosive device? Like what? Like.
Well, and they describe actually one murder. If you scroll down here, he killed.
Well, being out on bail for even one murder is kind of ridiculous. But
yeah, especially
when
he's
60 is
Yeah, and what was he did? Here we go. His essential activities that day had him sitting behind the wheel of a stolen car in the parking lot of an auto parts store. He was shot multiple times. It doesn't sound like any loss here. I'm trying to find the original crime because it's something to do with somebody in a wheelchair.
It could be maybe attempted murder, because sometimes you'll do that where if like there's 160 people in the building and you shot, then you get 160 counts of attempted murder or something like that.
Maybe he crashed a plane and we were told about it.
That's what I was thinking.
Maybe the CIA helped too.
But yeah,
you know what?
Don't tempt them with a good time.
I did look at it, and I think Eric is exactly right. It's a modern example of journalism and also our reaction. I'm looking at, there's only 2 outlets that are talking about this news break and the Chicago TV station. And it's so funny to see the comments, 438 of them. And they start with the fact that they just trust the headline. It says, what is going on with the Cook County justice system? WTF? What a waste of blanking bullets. The Chicago is run by criminals, both street thugs and title politicians. So it's just it's
that's
very
not
funny
untrue.
No one's read below the
coverage of the mayor, the Chicago mayor. Yeah, but by the way, that's one of those careful of what you wish for. You might just get it. Everybody's like, yeah, Lori Latchfoot got her out. And then this guy's in. You're like, oh, shit.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Wah. sad
Okay,
trombone.
but like Lori Lightfoot, this is an opinion, is one of the ugliest people I've ever seen.
She's a
like,
Batman villain.
I'm
She's a
just
Batman
saying,
villain.
like,
Okay, I don't wanna
she
get into
literally
facts.
terrified me, so I'm okay with her being out.
Oh my God.
Like, it was offensive. Her face was criminal. That's all I'm saying.
What about the mayor from Dalton? You see, she's like blowing up everywhere. The mayor
Wait,
from-
what? I haven't seen. I don't know if she's worse than Lori Lightfoot.
Not looking, but she's like totally taking over this town. Biden invited her to the White House. People are like up in arms. It's crazy. It's being like,
Nate, did you see her most recent thing?
I know, where she's like, you questioning me? I'm black and I'm in power, and I'm it's like crazy. Yeah, she's like,
Yeah, I talked about it last
insane.
night. It was great. Yeah, and now the water mains are breaking, and the police department has no money because she spent it all.
It's funny because everybody like Tatum's covering, like everybody's like all of a sudden covering this woman. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You put her on their radar, Nate.
I was like
it's all
5
you.
months ago I was covering it up, but now it's like it's everybody. I'm like watching all these videos of Tiffany Henyard.
Oh, sorry.
Matter of fact, you know how crazy she is? She just gave away $1 million of the town's money on Facebook. So yeah, this woman is crazy.
Damn.
She's the winner. She's the winner. But
I'll watch your videos on it, Nate. That sounds funny.
Maybe you can get
And when
Fannie
I say
Willis to
funny, I mean
prosecute her.
horrible.
Well, she was just invited to the White House by Biden.
Oh, she's the one who's like playing that song "Where My Money."
Yeah, she
My money.
told the residents. She's like, "Bitch, better have my money." You know, she told the residents.
Oh my
She's
God.
great. She's great.
All right, I don't know if I should take a chance on it, but this story is just too funny.
It's going to be the D's one, right?
Oh, there we go.
Yes, I have to. I can't help myself. Let's see. This is a story of. Actually, we'll just let it.
The medical specimen, and he admits that he disposed of them.
Okay.
I am suing for the return of them and damages in the amount of $6,500.
She had her testicles removed. I believe, if I recall correctly, it was March 23rd, and they were left in the fridge. I wanted nothing to do with it. I thought it was odd, but I try not to judge because everybody's a little different. If it's what made her happy, whatever. I want nothing to do with them. I'm not one for body parts and all that stuff. It's kind of gross, actually. It's part of her twisted humor, not mine.
So they were in the house from April to...
They were there from April 2022 until July of 2023 when I disposed of them.
Yeah, so
Think about that. Every time you open the fridge, oh, never mind that over there, and keep looking. But wait till you hear the individual describing why.
He says he doesn't judge. Maybe he should start.
You know, this is the individual whose biological matter we are discussing, and why.
that physical anomaly has been a point of stress in my life since I can remember. And my middle name that I chose is D because my whole life I've been called Big D. I'm D from the D. And I thank God that these D's nuts were extracted. And they were put into a biohazard bag. And for shits and giggles, I put them in a mason jar. And I put them in the fridge next to the eggs.
Anybody want breakfast?
Ernie, this is not real, right? Like this.
No, this is a
I
real
saw
case.
No, I saw this on Twitter and I went, no way. That's a like SNL skit. This is not real. Wait, you got to show the end where he says, and I'm suing him for recovery of damages for these nuts. That's the best.
So let me ask you this: was the conversation ever from you? I'm done with you. Could you please get your testicles out of my face?
That never came up, and if they were so important to her,
Can you imagine being the judge on this? How do you address it?
I understand why she didn't grab them then.
So the amount that I'm claiming is for the damages of not having these nuts with me. I want them in my fridge, not his. I'm not sure why he would want to keep them. The damages were the loss of these nuts.
That's it.
See, when they say these nuts, I was waiting for them that this is like all a joke. because these nuts instead of these.
Number
That-
one,
that-
this is
that- well said.
this is crazy because it's the damages that's the problem here. How much are things that are in a fridge? How much are they worth? $6,500.
She abandoned him. It doesn't matter. It's
court
abandoned property. It's abandoned property. He can claim.
How can it be abandoned? Weren't they living together? He's like, it was in there from the March to.
But if he
or the
left it when
year?
he went out, I mean,
She left it when she left.
Was the relationship over? Was she still living
Yeah.
there?
Well,
I
also,
think
what are the
relationship
value
was
of them because they're sitting in a jar?
I know they probably.
Yeah, I think the value is like
Very, very valuable.
How do you come up with
Sentimental.
that number, by the way, too?
6,500.
Because that would seem,
Non-economic damages.
was that the procedure cost to put them in the jar? I'm very confused. It's
The
definitely not
jarring cost,
repeatable.
yeah.
Look at Joe. This is great. So
what's the market value on that? Right?
You had to
What's
go by the
market
canning equipment.
value? How do you make somebody like that whole?
Pain and suffering.
I don't know.
Maybe
Let's
Sam, maybe
let's
pain and
get off
suffering.
what it is and just say it's somebody lost their finger and they put it in the fridge and it got thrown away. I mean, is there any claim whatsoever?
No,
Well-
and I'm standing by. This is a joke.
Wait, no, are you kidding me? They're the family jewels. So
Well, somebody said that he lowballed the price.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh, so that's a perfect point to wrap up on. I always have to move things around here. Sean, what do you have coming up?
well, we're going to be finishing up this week for the Michelle Trakunis trial. It's been 18 days of like really boring forensics, but we're finally getting to the issue of how the murder occurred for Jennifer Dulos back in 2019 and how it got covered up. So it's actually starting to get kind of interesting, but it's what I would tell people is don't watch the first 2 weeks. It's really boring. I mean that. I mean that because it's all the DNA experts. They do the chain of custody. It's like, okay, and then did you test it? Yes, but then they save that for later. So you could skip a lot of it. But we'll be finishing that up tomorrow, probably like around noon.
you're like a marketing guru.
Absolutely. Ignore the first 2 weeks.
now I got to watch.
Yeah, there you go. Ian, what's going on with you?
Thank you so much. Appreciate being on the show today. You can find me on X, on YouTube, on every major social media platform. I just comment on what I see as social problems in society, and I try to give you proposed solutions. So that's what I enjoy as part of my work. And I'd love for you to join me on my Substack, where I write do videos, but I also write blog posts about various issues that come up that are probably pretty important to most people out there. So, yep, X, Substack, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn.
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Danny, where can people find you? And by the way, Danny did, I think, 5 hours on the interview last night, going into the history and everything else involved. So people might want to check that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Danny.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Right.
That's a huge shout out. I appreciate that. I'm just some whammon attorney, so if that's your thing, come check me out. Danny on Direct. You can find me everywhere. That's it.
Nate, what's going on with these nuts?
I don't know. Ari, it's Ari. What's going on, Ari? Well, with me, I'm deep. I hate when I get stupid cases like this, like the Gina Carano case, because I'm deep diving into it, and I'm finding like some crazy stuff. Like there are two cops. There's one cop who this cop was he said FBLM on his Twitter account.
I thought it was
fired.
Instagram.
It might have been Instagram, but anyway, they fired him and he sued under this law and won and got his job back, or because it was political speech. But then you had another cop who did it on Instagram who said, FBLM, but he was actually, his firing was upheld because on other posts he was in uniform. So they said, well, people could easily associate him, his feelings toward BLM with his job as being a police officer. So that was okay. So it's just fascinating to see how all these cases turn on whether people can identify where you work and, your employment versus not and all this other stuff. So it's just
we talked about it too, though, because one thing Nate and I argued about this yesterday anyway, but comparing a cop to Gina Carano isn't quite the same. The cop is closer to somebody in the military than
it's public
in terms of
it's also it's a public job versus a private
Correct.
job. But we're going but essentially I'm going to pull up all the cases and look to see how the courts have dealt with this issue of it being political versus not being political. And then I'll let you guys decide whether Gina Carano has a case, which I do believe Ian is right. She does. And Ian is going to make an appearance in my latest video about the women who stole $100 million from the army because he does it like 30 seconds. So I stole part of one of his shorts and put it in the video. So.
Wow, nice.
No problem. I give you consent.
All right, Joe. We always want to find out what's going on with Joe, and he likes to leave us with a word of wisdom. And
just one word, Joe,
or a few. You know, Joe doesn't usually hold back, so we always like to give a chance for Joe to share.
I'm Joe. Good logic.
MOON.
Oh, yeah. I'm Joe. Good logic. You can just if you look up good logic, there's no other good logic out there. It's just me. So that's Joe.
I'm cutting Joe off because Joe, you actually made an appearance on that big podcast. What's it called? What's the podcast you made the appearance on?
I don't know what you're talking about. No,
the one that you showed that you were talking about. What's the guy when you were on?
Oh, Destiny.
Wow.
I've been on Destiny.
I
argue with people. I argue with people a lot. Apparently.
PDP.
Patrick Bet David.
He made it. I mentioned Joe. They
mentioned him. Yeah.
It was mentioned on Patrick Bet David. Yeah. That someone remembered me. That's why goodlogic.locals.com. That's really what you want. I mean, if you want any final thought, I was trying to process here, and I came up with one thought that I was like, I don't know if I've ever expressed this before, and I really should get this out to the public before this moment passes. Because one thing you should always be concentrating on, thinking about